want to make sure my face is on the re-edited version from now on. That's my only stipulation.
Boom. We're back.
Good evening. We are back. Not planned either, so it's been a bit of a whirlwind, I've got to be honest. But look, I'm sure we'll get into that. But boys, first and foremost, Friday evening, how are we? We all good?
Yeah.
All good. I'm just after getting the little boy to sleep, so I have him on the monitor in case he wakes up. But it's all about Flash. That's been there for a while.
You've been waiting for that, haven't you? Yeah, you've been planning that, Daz. Yeah.
Love it. But look, we're here. Fees agreed. It looks like it's going to be a done deal very, very soon. Pete Graves, there was a lots of murmurs and different people saying it was close, but Pete Graves came out, fee agreed, 40 million plus around 5 added on in bonuses. And it looks like it's going to be happening. Looks like we're going to be seeing Anthony Gordon wearing the black and white. And yeah, it suits him. Why not? But look, I want to get your boys' opinions on this all, but we have a very special guest that I think we're all interested to know his opinions because he's from the other side of the coin. Pleasure, absolute pleasure. If you've watched Away Days, you'd have seen him on here. It's Mike from the Unholy Trinity. Let's bring him in. How you doing, my man?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Feeling flush and feeling fine.
Welcome, Mike.
Love it. Look, to be fair, the other day you dropped me a message and just said, look, it's looking like it may happen. If you want an Everton perspective, come on and more than happy to come on and share your thoughts. So look, you're here. What are your thoughts from an Everton perspective before we get to the Newcastle perspective with the boys? Are you over the moon? Are you buzzing, or are you a little bit disappointed that a player come through the academy has left at such a young age?
I think, as Evertonians, we've been saying for many years, these are the kind of things that we should be doing with young players. We should be bringing them through, getting them into the first team, and then making money on them. It's as simple as that. We've never done it particularly well outside of Wayne Rooney, probably, and even then, I think we didn't get enough money for Wayne Rooney at the time, to be honest. But I think it's a great deal for us to be guaranteed £40 million up front is a lot of money for a player. We think he's played 65 Premier League games, which is not a great deal. Obviously, you look back at last season, and when we were looking for a little bit of light, he was one of them. Between him, Richarlison, and your favourite Jordan Pickford, they were the three players who really we looked to, and we got a little bit of hope from and a little bit of encouragement. But for that kind of money, it's a fantastic deal for us. Absolutely fantastic. I've not spoke to one Everton fan or seen really any comments across social media that indicate anyone is disappointed, to be honest. And I think it had to happen after how he carried on this week as well, which was poor. It's when you've had a player come through the academy from such a young age, you think they have a little bit more respect. But listen, that's your modern footballer, and there's many reasons behind why he wanted to move away, which I'm sure we will get into. But from our perspective, we're happy with it. It gives a new manager a little bit of money to come into and hopefully be able to spend over the next few days. As per usual, Everton have left it very late because of obviously the manager situation and the fact that we had not a great deal of money going into the window. But now it gives Sean Dyche and Kevin Thelwell an opportunity to go and spend a little bit of money. And, for a player who his output has not been great at all this season, hasn't played a great deal in the last few weeks either. We've got to be happy that looks like it's come to a successful conclusion, and we are delighted, to be honest.
I just wanted to ask, obviously you've talked about what Anthony Gordon's done in recent days, and some of the dislike from the Everton perspective, but just I don't know if you can just run it down for those Newcastle fans that might not be aware. How has it got to this point? How has it got to this point where Anthony Gordon has not turned up for training, basically said that he wants to leave the club, and that's his time done at Everton. Like, how did it actually get to that point? Is there a bit of a timeline that's brought it to this point this week?
I think if we go back to the summer, obviously there was a lot of links to Chelsea, to Tottenham. The prices that were being touted were totally wrong. Everton were getting offered something like between 15 and 20 million pound up front, with a lot of add-ons. Add-ons that sometimes aren't achievable. So the deal was not good for us. Obviously, that turned his head. But he started the season, I thought, fairly well. Scored a couple of goals, looked quite lively. Had a good relationship with the manager as well. Him and Frank Lampard were close. Was given a number 10 shirt, don't forget, as well, for this season. And whether that's gone to his head, listen, we're guessing. People like to, I think, use that with a little bit of a stick to beat him with and say, his ego's gone out of control because he's got the number 10 shirt. He thinks he's better than he is. You're just guessing. I don't get that from Anthony Gordon. I don't think he's got a massive ego. I've got to be honest. I don't think he has. I think he's a young kid. I think last season, if I'm being perfectly honest, he put a lot of pressure on himself to get the club out of the situation that we found ourselves in. And he was running himself into the ground most games. And he took a bit of personal responsibility to try and save the club, which is obviously he was part of that. He then got potentially an opportunity to move away in the summer. And he thought, maybe I should go and play some Champions League football, go and play at the higher end of the Premier League table. Everton fans weren't sort of too concerned in the summer. A lot more Everton fans were happy that he stayed in the summer, that's for sure. But there was still people saying, well, if they're offering 50, 60 million pounds, then you've got to take it. But I think recently, as I say, his performances have not been great. The pressure's growing on the manager. Whether there was murmurings behind the scenes that the manager was obviously on his way out. Anthony Gordon thought, I'm not liking this. Fans were getting on his case a little bit. There was certainly episodes of that, social media. I know where I sit at Goodison Park, there was quite a few moans and groans about his performances and the fact that he didn't seem to be working particularly hard at times and looked a little bit unfit, to be honest with you. His engine just wasn't there. And then obviously then you combine that with what happened after Southampton, where a few lunatics from the local area decided they were going to chase him in his car and give him a bit of grief, which is uncalled for. Listen, we said that on our show, bang out of order, shouldn't happen. I saw a question there about whether I thought that played a part in him leaving. It wouldn't have helped things. But, we're talking about a minority of stupid fans, if you want to call them that. But he's a young kid. Maybe he couldn't deal with it. I think personally, we've seen it time and again, that young players who come through, who've got a bit of talent. Anthony Gordon, Tom Davis is probably another recent example. Players like that who just can't deal with the pressure of playing for the club that they play for since they were a kid. That's my personal opinion, and I think it will do them the world of good to get away from the city, go and play for Newcastle, who obviously are doing particularly well at this moment in time. And I think that takes that pressure off a little bit for me, but I think it's more to do with, as I say, the pressure last season combined with poor performances this season and a little bit of stick that he's been getting. I think he thinks it's time to get out.
No, it's a great rundown that and great opinions, Mike, as we come to expect. That's for sure. It's interesting, and I think there'll be a lot of additional questions that will fly off what you've just said, and I think one or two in the chat have already mentioned that. But I have to say, just first of all, sorry, Dan, I'm not sure who's in the comments. George Hayes, thank you for your donation to the channel. Really, really do appreciate it. Thank you. Super sticker. The super chat is open, so any donations, they are well received by all of us at Loaded Mag NUFC, and it helps us grow the channel and do what we do right now, is to provide content like this. Over 300 in the channel in the chat already. Thank you for all your support. Click the likes, and if you're new to the channel, and we know one or two are, click that subscribe as well. Boys, I'll come to you guys really because Mike's gave a really good perspective from an Everton point of view. But what's our feelings, and is there anything from what Mike said that you want to question or you want to throw anything back. But of course, we've got to start with the other scouts, haven't we? Since we've just spoke to one, we've got to start with the other. So, Chris, first of all, how's your household at the moment? Are they holding up well? Are they jumping for joy? Is the champagne being popped? What's the situation? But what's your thoughts on Anthony Gordon?
Do you know what? I touched on it briefly, didn't I, pre-show? But certainly the feeling is very much the same feeling as what Mike's going through. It's quite joy, if I'm honest. They're absolutely delighted to be getting 40 million for Anthony Gordon. And I suppose the way you look at it, you're getting rid of a player who doesn't want to be at the club. Everton don't want him at the club any longer, and you've picked up a really good fee. From my point of view, I just keep looking back and referring back to last season when Anthony Gordon was outstanding for a period. And I keep thinking, he's English, he's 21, lots of potential. And we've seen what Eddie Howe can do with players. There's been a few Newcastle players who we thought were done and dusted at Newcastle, the likes of Joe Linton, the likes of Miggy Almiron. We were talking before the season started about getting rid of those kind of players, and the fact that he's brought them on the way he has is positive. And I agree with what Mike said, about it probably being time for the move for Anthony Gordon. I think the fiasco outside the stadium when the fans were around his car and everything, I think that kind of, like Mike said, I don't think that's the reason he's leaving, but it definitely didn't help the situation. It's kind of like at the point of no return, really.
Yeah.
So for me, I've got to be honest, it's not a signing that excites me. As soon as I heard the news, I wasn't jumping for joy, but equally, I think there's the potential for a really good player there. And like I say, you look at the fact he's 21, you look at the fact that he made he put a few really good performances together last season and really, really helped Everton. This season it hasn't quite worked out, but there's probably some factors as to why that is. So overall, I'm pleased because we needed another body through the door. But yeah, I'm not jumping for joy, put it that way. But I equally, I'm not writing him off before he's even kicked the ball yet.
No, I think that's fair. And you know what? There's a lot of fans that feel like you do from that perspective. So I don't think there's anything wrong in that at all. There's nothing wrong in anybody's opinion. I think Michael Palmer, who might well be in the chat, he said he was going to as yet. He's been very vocal on social media today. I've seen some of his comments. He is not happy with that. And look, Michael, we'll come to that in a second. That's for sure. But touching on the deal, Daz, I'll come to you because something particular I want to come to with Richie with that. Going back to the deal, David Ornstein's put today that it will see Newcastle pay the 40 million as a single payment. Vital given, obviously, Everton's situation. And as well as that, Sky are reporting this evening, in the last hour, that there is actually a sell-on clause added into that as well. So there's a sell-on clause for Gordon if he does then get sold on from Newcastle. If we get a bigger fee, for example, for him, if he does well. I wasn't aware of that until the last hour. So, with that in mind, Daz, do you have an issue with the deal? Do you care about how much we pay for players nowadays? But is that an issue that kind of that you have a problem with, or just in general, what's your thoughts on the deal?
No, I don't have a problem with the fee. I'm happy. I'm one of the ones that's happy, and that it has divided the fan base, and you see it in the chat, you see it on Twitter. Look, if you think back to the prices quoted to Chelsea and us for the last window was the 60 million or something like close to that. So look at 45 million, and even if it is up front, look at we're at the stage in the window now where we don't, the time's running out. We have to get moving on with things, and if they come up, they worked out a compromise. I know it's a good deal for Everton as well. Mike's happy, he's ready to go shopping. It'd be good. We must ask him, Mike, in a sec, who would you like to bring in as well? But so think of that. But yeah, no, I'm happy. And if you think about it as well, if Anthony Gordon is the difference between us making the Champions League or not making the Champions League, it's a bargain. So It's great to have another option now as well in attack, because who knows what will happen with injuries or whatever as we go through the last games. And as everyone else has said as well, he's 21. He's and I'm going off on a bit of a tangent now, but he's about to get Eddie Howe. He doesn't have to put up with I think it's good as well that he wanted to come to Newcastle, or he wants to come to Newcastle. It's not actually signed yet, but and he wants to build on what he already has. So that's a good sign to me. He's not. It doesn't look like he's waiting for a Chelsea to come in last minute and sit on the bench and earn his money that way. But so he wants to learn. So yeah, happy all around.
Yeah. Richie, Daz made a really good point there. He said, he wants to come to Newcastle. The noises have been this week that he didn't want to stay at Everton. He wanted to join Newcastle. As soon as he knew that the interest had increased, he wanted to be a part of that. So that is definitely a plus in itself. But there's been a lot of talk about Gordon's attitude and how he's gone about things from a Newcastle perspective, not an Everton, we know about that, but from a Newcastle perspective, a lot of fans are not happy about how he's gone about things, not going to training, saying that he wants to leave the club. And some people have took issue with that now. I know you've got some thoughts on that. I think we share the same thoughts, in fact.
We do. See, you can put the picture up if you want, but I think people need to have a look back to, we're talking 13 years ago now with Hatton Ben Arthur, who was a fantastic fan favourite. He refused to play for Marseille. He wanted to go to Newcastle full stop, wasn't trained, didn't want to play, tried to force a deal through to Newcastle. And you've got to think about what Hatton Ben Arthur was as a player for us after that. If your heart's not with the club you're currently playing for and you want to go somewhere else, obviously, as Mike mentioned, there's been a lot of things going on behind the scenes with Everton, on and off the pitch, with fans outside of the ground, with obviously Anthony Gordon involved in that and stuff. And if it's good to believe that it's his hometown club as well, that's hard to take. If some of the people that you're the same as sort of thing are turning against you as well, then you can understand from his point of view to a degree why he wants to go now. He feels that he's not settled there. And those rumours coming out, the reason why he was in London was because he was fearing for him and his family's life because of what had gone on. Whether that's true or not, or an exaggeration, I don't know. Mike might know more about that than what I would. But for me, I'd just give the lad a chance. At the end of the day, the one thing we've known about Eddie Howe since he's come in, the one thing that is the biggest characteristic of any player that when they come in is character. And if they had a doubt about the Anthony Gordon's character, they would have walked away from the deal a long time ago. Yeah. That's the one thing you've got to look at. So for me, does he improve the squad? Yes. He's young. There's some loads of stats going through in the chat about being the second fastest player in the Premier League, fifth fastest with the ball in Europe. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's some fantastic stats.
3 years.
Yeah. There's so many skills to work on. And if you can imagine getting that extra out of him with Eddie Howe and the training staff, and then also you're adding the extra quality on the pitch that he's going to be able to train with on a day-to-day basis, play with on a Saturday, you're going to have 50,000 crowd behind you, not against you on the pitch anymore like he has done at Goodison. But the one thing I want to know, so obviously we discussed this briefly, so it was a question for Mike that I wanted to ask him. We brought it up the other day that obviously you had a decent season last year in patches. Obviously, you had that Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you had Richarlison there as well. Do you have the feeling that having the lack of Richarlison and obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin has literally just come back from injury, that has put a bit of pressure on him as well? That obviously that he's been leading the front line pretty much. Obviously, Damari Gray has been doing it as well, but he's not the same quality as the two previous people that I mentioned. And has that been a little bit of a burden on him as well, trying to be the focal point or the main guy in that front three?
I think the pressure came from last season, and obviously starting this season, like you say, Richarlison went, Calvert-Lewin's been injured for quite long periods, and at times Frank Lampard was playing a front three or two wide players and a central player, and Anthony Gordon was playing central. So he was playing it as a number 9 almost, and him and Damari Gray was swapping, and Dwight McNeil was dropping in, and what have you. So totally different role for him. I think the expectation that came with the fact that he's got his number 10 shirt, the fact that he's a local lad, so straight away that pressure is already on his shoulders. So people were expecting big things from him this season. So obviously he's felt that. What I said going through from August onwards, I've said, listen, last season he wasn't able to develop because it was an anomaly season, a lot of pressure. Obviously we were struggling massively in the league until the penultimate game of the season when we stayed up against Crystal Palace. So as a kid of his age, he wasn't really developing as such. It was just he was getting through games on pure energy and enthusiasm and will to try and get us through the Premier League season and stay in the league. So I said this season really is a developmental season for him, and we've got to allow him time to develop. He's going to have off games. He's a young kid. He's not going to be at his best week in, week out. I think that the concern as this season's gone on is that what we've seen is that there's been a drop off, I think, in terms of his attitude. He wanted that move. The contract talks that he had with us, he wanted a lot of money. There was talk that we were going to offer that money. Then that went away. You wonder whether because Everton thought, well, hang on, we can get £40 million from here and we need the money, possibly. But I just think the expectation was just so much. And I've been probably more sympathetic than most Everton fans have been towards him. And I was certainly willing to give him time to develop. But the fact that we haven't got, many players, wide players of any kind of quality within our squad, obviously, if he wasn't fit or Damari Gray wasn't fit or weren't in any kind of form, then Everton struggled, of course. And I just think it's just been a little bit of a perfect storm in a way, which has meant that, he's felt the pressure. We've struggled massively. The manager's been under pressure. The crowd have got on his back. He had his head turned in the summer, and it's just meant that he wants out. And, people are questioning. I've seen, obviously, a few comments in regards to his attitude and things like that. I think you've got to remember the age of the kid. All young players make mistakes. All young players, can be badly advised as well, don't forget, by people that they trust and think that they go about things the right way. So not coming to saying stupid of him, never the right way. He would have got his move anyway, in my opinion. But, he's a young lad. He's naive. And you've got to take it into account as well. He will learn as he gets older. It won't help him when he comes back to Goodison Park in April, by the way, because he'll get an absolutely horrific reception. And that's his own fault. He's got it's a tough lesson to learn. But what I'd say to Newcastle fans is, let's give him the chance to prove himself on the pitch. I don't think he's a bad kid at all, by all accounts. I think he's a decent character. He was liked by the Everton players. He seemed close to a lot of them. Good with the manager. Him and the manager got on really well. So I'd probably say to give him the benefit of the doubt in this situation because of the age of him and the fact that, this is the first time he's moved anywhere. Doesn't really know the process, to be honest. He just thinks, how do I go about it? What do I do? Panicked, misadvised, young, lots of reasons why, but just give him a chance is what I'd say.
You Pete.
He fell asleep. I was talking too long, wasn't I?
I was pouring a drink, so I didn't want to.
It's so loud pouring drinks.
Very loud. Look, just before that, 400 in the chat. Amazing numbers. Thank you for everyone joining us so far. Get your questions in for us. For everyone, we've got another guest in the green room waiting to come on. But look, I know time's short, Mike, with yourself, and appreciate you joining us. Just really quickly, what are the positives on the pitch with regards to Gordon? What are we likely to see in a Newcastle shirt if and what we expect to Eddie Howe gets his way and he coaches him and works with him?
Well, like you said, obviously his pace is good. I think sometimes it's a little bit deceptive because when I saw the stats thing for this season, I think he was second in terms of the Premier League speeds this season. I was a little bit surprised, but he always, if you look at interviews that he's done in recent months, he always backed himself to be the quickest at Everton, and we always thought, hang on, Ben Godfrey and Calvert-Lewin are really quick, but he backed himself, and obviously he is. So that pace, I think his pressing game when he's on it is good. Commitments, as I say, last season was really good. His goals, I think he scored 7 Premier League goals and 3 assists in 65 games. So it's not a fantastic return, obviously. But I remember watching him in the under-21s, and the kids scored some great goals from distance as well. Cutting inside from the left onto his right foot. He's not scared of going at players. I think back to when he was first brought into the side by Carlo Ancelotti during lockdown, and he got a couple of assists early doors just by going at players, getting to the byline and pulling the ball back. So he will offer that, of course. He will. Maybe centrally he might be a little bit better. Not as much defensive work to do. Obviously, Newcastle like to press. Everton weren't a particularly fantastic and aren't a great pressing team, and weren't under Frank Lampard. Obviously, Eddie Howe's got different standards when it comes to that and a different way of playing. So we will have to adapt. I'm sure that he will. I don't think this season, as I say, has been probably a fair reflection of his ability because of a number of factors. But that pace, say going at a man, cutting inside on that right foot, letting the shot go, he'll do it. He'll do it. And again, people are saying I can't see him scoring a goal. He'll score goals for you this season. There's no problem. The pressure will be off him. I think he'll be a different player. I think he'll be a different player because he's away from Everton, which is a difficult club at this moment in time for everybody. It's even more difficult for a homegrown player who's been there since he was a young kid, who's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. So I think having that freedom at Newcastle, it'll be a breath of fresh air for him. I expect him to certainly score goals and assist this season, and I think he'll do well for you.
Mike, just quick question while Peter's on mute there. Who would you like to see come in, or what position do you think you'll strengthen with the 45 million that's coming your way? 40 million.
Anyone who can run and kick a ball would certainly be.
We're just after getting rid of Chris Wood. Sorry about that.
Well, he was go on to Chris Wood. He was offered last week as part of a deal for Anthony Gordon. I think it was 25 million plus Chris Wood was the deal. Everton turned it down. I think if Sean Dyche was in charge at that particular point, he would have said, "Yeah, I'll have him." And I wasn't averse. I've got to be honest, because I like a good old battering ram up front, and he's always a pain and has been a pain in our backside every single time he's played against us. He's a big lad. He's a lump, you know yourself. Not prolific by any means, but I think the way that we're going to play going forward, I think he'll probably suit that. But we certainly need another central striker. We certainly need now at least one wide player with Anthony Gordon, obviously.
Fraser, maybe?
Well, no, we don't want Ryan Fraser. Although, when I come on this show, I always say he always scores against us as well. So if we buy players that score against us, maybe we have a bit of a better chance. But no, we definitely need wide players. I mean, Suleiman has been one who's being mentioned, who maybe, and there's a bit of interest there from Southampton as well. But we need pace. We need players who are going to be committed. His attitude, as you mentioned there, almost attitude is key in our predicament. The manager that's come in, he accepts nothing less than 110% every single training session. He will not have bad characters and people who don't want to work. So it's players in attacking areas. I've got to be honest. I think that's the key. We can get by elsewhere, but we don't pose much of a threat when it comes to going forward, and that's our biggest concern.
Who keeps flashing this?
I'm flashing it up because not necessarily transfer-related news, but it has been confirmed that Kieran Trippier, our captain, has extended his contract at Newcastle United. So it's just been confirmed now. I think it's another couple of years he's extended his contract for, but that's just breaking news in the last couple of minutes. So yeah, Kieran Trippier has extended his contract at Newcastle United. So great news all round. The captain stays until 2025. I just wanted to throw that out there. Just while I'm thinking. Mike, just before you go, super quick, and then we've got our next guest that's ready to fly in. Did you have a question, Chris?
Yeah, I had a couple of very quick questions for Mike. So the first one, Mike, just dead quickly. You were mentioning that Gordon can play a number of positions across the front line. If you were Eddie Howe, and bearing in mind we've got Miggy Almiron, we've got Alan St-Maximin, I would assume you wouldn't play him a striker. Where would you play Anthony Gordon? Where do you think his best position is?
I mean, I'd look to probably start him wide left, to be honest with you, because obviously he'll cut inside on his right foot. I think if Eddie Howe's looking to play someone as a number 10, I think he might, as time goes on, that could be his role, to be honest with you. I think just cutting it, just being inside, floating around the front man, I think that would suit him, because then he hasn't got that defensive responsibility. Because his bookings, number of bookings, I think he's had 10 bookings in the space of 65 Premier League games. He saved the one match ban this season quite early on, and he came back and got booked again straight away. So he's a little bit rash at times. Tackling's not his forte. So if you can take that away from him, then that's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah. And when you say tackling's not his forte, I saw the James Ward-Prowse goal I saw the free kick being given away. So
yeah,
I take that on board.
Not great.
And also, last question before you go, I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on Sean Dyche? Richie's been having a meltdown. He's not happy.
He's just texted me and told me to give you a message, but listen, I won't repeat it because it's not for the to be honest.
Go on. We've got a beeper.
No, it's nothing. There's no foul language from what I can see, but it's not particularly nice. I'm not as defamatory as him. You know what he's like. You've known him for many years. Yeah, I'm surprised not in the chat, but he said he's busy. Something to do with swimming in the Anthony Gordon money or something like that, or words to that effect. Wasn't quite as nice as that.
But yeah, so what are your thoughts on Sean Dyche? Are you happy? I mean, me personally, Mike, I have to say I've been having conversations with Richie and various other Blues, and I've been saying, for the position you're in and the caliber of manager that you can attract, and that's no disrespect, looking at the league table, looking at the position you're in, like for me, I thought Sean Dyche wasn't a bad pick, personally.
I think it was the obvious pick, wasn't it? I think when you look at the names that were mentioned, I mean, Bielsa, as soon as he was brought up, he just thought there's no way he can get those players to any kind of acceptable level that he expects in this, halfway through a season when we need results. Even he said, he's come in and said, listen, I'll have the job in the summer, but then in the meantime, pay me £1 million a month and I'll take the 21s. Never had anything like it in my life. Just incredible. But he's a character, isn't he? He's a character.
Yeah.
So he was never going to work. Let's be honest there. I think a lot of people wanted, left field picks like sort of Tedesco, Gallardo, Marcelino. People like that. It's probably as safe as an option as we could have gone for because of his history. When he was at Burnley, obviously he did well, got him into Europe. The concern is obviously he was sacked last season and wasn't given the responsibility to keep him in the league, and the job was given obviously to Michael Jackson. Obviously didn't quite work out, but he came close to doing it. So that's always a little bit of a concern, I think, because that was his last job. I like the way he speaks. I think he's no nonsense. He won't take any nonsense. We're going to be in for some rough football, but listen, we've had some rough football in the last 12 months, so it is what it is. You've got to do what you've got to do to survive. So I think he'll be warmly received. When Arsenal rock up next Saturday at Goodison Park, I think he'll be warmly received. Hopefully, he's got enough time to get a few players in. Apparently, he's been told he can get 3 or 4 through the door before the window closes on Tuesday. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he sets us up. And what he can actually achieve. I think the fact he's got a break clause in his contract is helpful. And if things don't work out, then he can be moved on for very little money. And even if they do work out and you want to go down a different road, then you can also get rid of him. But listen, I respect the man for coming in and wanting to take the job, because it's not an easy job. It's a bit of a poison chalice, and if I was a manager, I'd probably be staying well clear at this moment in time, because it's difficult. It's a difficult job. But listen, best of luck to him. He's certainly welcome at the club, and fingers crossed he can do the job for us.
Mike, absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us on short notice. Great insight from Gordon and all things Everton perspective. And I'm sure we'll be having you back very soon in the build-up to the big game in April. When Gordon makes his return. So I'm sure we'll get you back on away days and we'll have a good chat from that. But I know you need to go. You take care. I'm sure.
Cheers, Mike.
And yeah, top man, as always.
Cheers, lads. Speak to you soon. Mike.
Take care, Mike. See you, mate.
Great to have Mike on from an Everton perspective. And look, we're going to keep it rolling because we've got a fantastic guest who's a regular on Loaded Mag NUFC, and it's Dom Scare from the Shields Gazette. How you doing, Dom?
Evening, lads. You all right?
Even Dom.
Right, Dom.
Evening, Dom.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
No, pleasure. And I know, well, thank you. It was very, very short notice, that we asked you to come and join us just to get your reaction, really. Obviously, the deal's been agreed. It's looking like a £40 million deal. Just what are your initial thoughts about everything with regards to Gordon and his potential signing?
Yeah, it's one that obviously Newcastle were interested in last summer at the start of the season, and back then Anthony Gordon was coming off sort of a very raw, very impactful last season at Everton, where he pretty much helped them stay in the Premier League. This season hasn't quite worked out for him, so hasn't started recently. I think just one of the last 9 games he started for a team who are really, really struggling in the Premier League. So there's question marks, but ultimately he's a 21-year-old English player, Premier League proven. I think he's played 51 games since the start of last season, so rarely injured as well. Scored goals, not prolific, but for an attacking player. But he knows where the net is. Likes to shoot as well. And given the role he played in keeping Everton up, given the fact that he's such a hard-working player, he's got a bit about him as well. It ticks a lot of boxes for Eddie Howe, and I think Eddie Howe, as a manager, will look at Anthony Gordon and see a player he can mould into the Newcastle squad and the type of play style that he wants at Newcastle. So I think in a lot of ways it's a very good signing for Newcastle, but obviously the transfer fee is another thing. It's probably an inflated transfer fee, but when you're young and English and Premier League proven, it's always going to be a very inflated fee. And fortunately, Newcastle now, it's not a case of we've only got 40 million to spend, things like that. We can spend this money and go further and still look at other targets as well. So it's not like we're putting all our eggs in one basket with Anthony Gordon. But ultimately, he is an improvement on what we've got in those wide areas. I think in terms of Jacob Murphy, Ryan Fraser, I think he's an improvement on those two. So he does improve the squad. Does he walk straight into the starting 11 for that West Ham game? I'd say probably not. But I think in a lot of ways, planning for the future, it could be a really good signing for Newcastle.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a real interesting one. And look, we have to come to this question because there's a few people that are asking it now. And I just want to get your perspective on it before I come to the lads in general as well, is that there are a number of different journalists and various different people saying tonight that's it. It's business done from when we get Gordon through the door. Luke Edwards and Pete Graves have both said it tonight, or words to that effect. What are your thoughts now? Do you think they've gone all out for Gordon to get that deal done? Can you see Newcastle being active in the last few days of the window?
I can see them keeping relatively active. I think this will be the last big deal. There was whispers maybe a late move for James Maddison, but I can't see that happening. Maybe one for the summer, as we know.
Well, you just moved by months, haven't you? I'm joking.
I think obviously the difficulty is we've got a weekend coming up. Transfer deals hard to get done on, or tend to be slower getting done on weekends. Then we've got Monday, then deadline day where we're playing Southampton. So we've basically only got one more day plus the weekend where things will be a lot slower to get stuff done. So there's not a lot of time, which is probably why it's a safe bet to say Newcastle have finished the business in terms of like major deals getting done. But I think we'll see, obviously, probably a couple more outgoings in terms of loans. And then I wouldn't rule out a couple of, maybe one, maybe two young players coming in as well in terms of strengthening the squad in that respect. Because if, say, Carl Darlow goes out on loan to Hull City, as expected, we've sold Chris Wood, the squad now is 23 players strong, so that you have to fill 2 spaces. Anthony Gordon will fill 1 space, and then who's going to fill the other space? Will it be, I don't know, Mark Gillespie, or will another player come in? And I think that'll be an interesting one. But I wouldn't rule out another signing after Anthony Gordon. But like I say, it's probably a safe bet to say Newcastle are done in terms of big spending this window.
So you're thinking maybe they're Dom, the likes of a Harrison Ashby, maybe for a right back cover, maybe like Frank had the Brazilian from Minze, someone of that ilk.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, Harrison Ashby is the one they've been working on for some time. I think I'd be surprised if we don't see him in a Newcastle shirt at some point. He's obviously out of contract in the summer. Newcastle been working on this deal for a while. It's just a case. Do they bite the bullet now, pay the money to West Ham, or get him technically on a free in the summer, but there'll obviously be tribunal costs involved with that. So it's what would you rather do, and what will West Ham rather do, because he's not in the first team picture with West Ham at the moment. So he's someone who I wouldn't be surprised to see through the door. But like I say, it's a sort of fluid situation where Newcastle could well choose to make a move for him in the summer, because, like Kieran Trippier just signed a new contract. He's never going to get displaced from the first team, really, unless he's injured. But even then, you've got Javier Manquillo to come in.
And it has to be someone that's willing to sit it out for a while and kind of play second fiddle. And maybe that means Manquillo will be out in the summer then as well. And of course, West Ham could maybe take a bit of money. They need to buy another physio, because they have Danny Ings now, so they'll need another physio for all that.
I like how you threw that in there.
Under the radar.
Very much so. No, it's going to be an interesting one. I hadn't actually thought. I don't know if you boys had actually thought what Dom's just said about the potential of a couple of players coming out the 25-man squad. We do need to fill it. I mean, if we don't sign anyone, is Gillespie really the one that you're going to bring back in? I mean, we've still not even talked about, the likes of Ryan Fraser potentially going. He's not had a sniff recently. He could be out there. So, could there be a potential? Well, what was interesting is that a tentative link, but there was a link there with Malcolm, the Brazilian. It says he's a striker, but he can play off the left or off the right. Currently at Zenit St. Petersburg, was at Barcelona for a period of time. Good player, still relatively young. There was an interest there, possibly from Newcastle. Is there a chance there? Maybe there's a loan. I don't think you might not have heard anything about that, Tom. Is that name come about at any point?
I've heard the name, but only those tentative reports. I wouldn't entertain it at this stage, to be honest. But obviously, a young Brazilian, Newcastle paid attention to that sort of market, so it's sort of adding 2 and 2 together, I think. But it's one of them. Haven't paid much attention to it, because I'd be surprised if it happens this late in the window.
No, definitely. I mean, look, just thinking about away from the transfers, looking ahead to next Tuesday. I just want to get your thoughts quickly. Lots of talk about Isak and Alan Saint-Maximin coming into the team. You would have seen the game on Tuesday. You saw their impact on the game. What are your thoughts about them potentially coming in and starting the game? Or do you think Eddie Howe is going to be that type of manager that sticks to his guns and keeps the same team and continues them as being an impact player? What are your thoughts on that?
I think Eddie Howe will stick to his guns, but I would prefer if he didn't. I think Alan Saint-Maximin and Alexander Isak would start for me. I think Isak possibly has a better chance of starting with Callum Wilson. I think in recent weeks, I think it's well documented, he has looked a bit jaded since coming back from the World Cup. He's been suffering from illness on and off as well. And he hasn't scored in, I think, 7-8 games, something like that. So Alexander Isak coming in, who has made a big impact when he has come off the bench in recent games. I was really impressed with him actually on on Tuesday night at Southampton, and he pretty much single-handedly got Newcastle the win with. I mean, he had no right to create that chance from the position he was in, but that's what you pay £60 million for, really. He's created a chance out of virtually nothing, and Newcastle's end up getting the win. And then, obviously, Alan St-Maximin, we know what he's all about. He can be, well, we all know he's a maverick and might not fit into the sort of regimented system Eddie Howe likes to play, the high press and very sort of consolidated defensively, but he is on his day a match winner. He can, even towards the end with the red card, he's picked up the ball on the halfway line and just charged. And I think in a team where in recent weeks we've been really struggling to score goals, I mean, the 2 goals we've scored since the Leicester game have been heavily involved with Alexander Isak and just those 2 goals, and the rest have been 0-0. So I'd like to see players who coming into the team like Isak, like St-Maximin, who are creative, who are capable of finding goals. Because at the moment, Callum Wilson doesn't really look like scoring. I would never bet against him scoring if he gets chances, but he's not getting too many chances either. And then Joe Willock on the left or Joe Linton. Okay, Joe Linton scored, but I think Joe Linton's more effective in the midfield 3. So for me, it would be a same setup, but with Alexander Isak and Alan St-Maximin for Joe Willock and Callum Wilson.
Dom, a question for you, and just before I do, I just want to say give a shout out to Chris from Leicester Till I Die TV. Always welcome on the channel, Chris. And if you're back in, he's back in here to try and give us a good price deal on Tillmans and Madison. Keep it coming. You're getting closer. You're getting closer to our figure, Chris. Keep coming. Sorry, Dom. The question is, and I was linked to something you said there about ASM. I'm sure you heard the rumors about ASM and AC Milan. I called it bullshit the other day. But now that we've actually got Gordon in or coming in, I'm sure there'll be people talking about ASM going somewhere as well. But what's your thoughts on that whole Italian media AC Milan link?
Watch what I say here, but I think you summed it up quite well, Daz. That's all I'll say.
On the same page, Tom. I like it. Cool.
Right. Dom, I'm not sure how long we've got you for. I know it was only kind of a short period. So, look, I'm just going to throw a couple of questions at you, really.
Okay.
Just a couple. I just want to get your thoughts on Dyche. Dyche's obviously gone to Everton. Will he save Everton in your perspective, or do you think that Everton are already too far gone?
I think it's so tight at the bottom that you could never rule a team out. I mean, 15 points Everton are, and I think a couple of wins takes them to mid-table, really. So it's not like last season where teams were cut adrift. The likes of it was basically Newcastle, Norwich, Watford, and Burnley, and then Everton ended up getting dragged into it as well, and Leeds. But I think all he needs is a decent run of form. But having said that, just it feels very much like what it was like the first time Newcastle went down, but probably to a greater degree, where just the fans are against the owners. It's getting toxic, but Everton, it's been turned up to 11, and it's going to be a very, very difficult job. You look at the squad and the players, and there's some good players in there, but as a unit, or will they have the heart, have the battle to stay in the Premier League? I'm not sure, but Sean Dyche is a proven manager at this level, so it's if he can get a tune out of them, I mean, then I don't see why they can't stay up. And Sean Dyche, I think, is a sensible appointment. I think Marcelo Bielsa would have been, although I think he's a more attractive appointment, and I think he's better in teams competing at the right end of the table rather than relegation battles, and that's exactly why Leeds got rid of him last season. So I think Sean Dyche would be a sensible appointment for Everton. He's probably the best they can get, I think, to be honest. I think he's probably too good an appointment for Everton, given everything that's going on at that club at the moment.
More than fair. And last one here. Review everything said. Dom, what 4 positions would you like to see upgraded most if only 4 first-team signings could be made this summer? I think he's gone right back, left back, defensive midfield, and forward. Would you agree with that, or is there anywhere else you think may need to be strengthened come the summer?
I agree with left back. I think Dan Burn, as good as he's been, is not a natural left back, and I think the lack of chances Newcastle create from that left side is probably telling, really. And I think if you have a proper attacking left back, it would make, in a similar ilk to Kieran Trippier, who, I mean, that's going to be hard to get. But if you can have someone who can whip the balls in consistently, bomb forward, pace, which is easier said than done, but I think you'll find Newcastle be a lot more effective in terms of creating chances. So that would be one. I think midfield needs strengthening. As much as Joe Willock, Sean Longstaff have done very good jobs this season, I think we just need that strength in depth, and we need someone to almost unleash Bruno, if you like, so give him that freedom to play as the 6, play as the 8, whatever the game suits would be ideal. Because at the moment, it's Bruno is everything's going through him. Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock are doing all the running and the dirty work, if you like. But we need someone who's got some real quality and really able to pick out a pass, break things up, like a proper number 6, if you like. So those 2 positions, I wouldn't say right back as such, just because Kieran Trippier, I mean, he's just signed a new deal as well. He is the wrong side of 30 now, 32, but he's pretty much the captain, isn't he? He's not going to get replaced easily. I'd maybe like to see, because we're probably going to see Ryan Fraser, Matt Ritchie, players like that moved on. I'd like to see we'll have Anthony Gordon coming in who can play on either side, but I'd say another winger. If you could get a Diaby type in, it's wishful thinking, but that would be ideal. Someone who can really score goals from out wide. Miguel Almiron's done that to a degree, but can he do that over a season? Probably we're already asking that question. It's looking like probably not. So a winger as well, left back, midfielder, and doesn't hurt to have another striker like Alexander Isak's good. I think he's been more effective in a slightly deeper role though, or drifting out wide. If you can have a proper upgrade on Chris Wood, that would be ideal as well. Someone to, because Callum Wilson, Alexander Isak, they've missed large chunks of the season as well. So if you can have someone who's a proper substantial upgrade on Chris Wood, that would be ideal as well.
Great stuff. Look, Dom, thank you for taking the time to jump on last minute. Really do appreciate it. Sorry to interrupt your evening.
Sorry.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, and look, no doubt you'll be joining us again at some point down the road. We'll definitely be in touch. But thank you for your questions, everyone in the chat for Dom. Thank you for your answers, Dom, and your opinions. We'll let you go. Have a good one.
Spot. Cheers, lads. See you later.
See you later.
Have a good weekend.
Cheers.
Come on as well. Nice couple of guests in there. Mike, spot on as always, and Dom, great to have on from his opinions from all things the Shields Gazette. Look, lads, Dom just touched on a point there. I wanted to ask you. He talked about Anthony Gordon. He said, he can play on the left, he can play on the right. We've seen him at times for Everton last season play as kind of like the front man at certain points in games. Where do you feel Anthony Gordon's coming in to play for Newcastle? Where do you think he's going to be? If he comes off the bench against West Ham, where do you think he's going to come on? Is he going to come on for Miggy? Is he going to come on the left instead of Maxi or Joe Linton? What are your thoughts? Right, Chris, I'll start with you.
I think left wing, mate. I think Mike's right. Obviously, cut in. He does play. I wouldn't say predominantly for Everton left wing because we have seen him as a 10. But when Everton have adopted the same formation as ourselves, which they have done since Garner Gay's come in, they've got a Nana, that tends to be how they set up. So I think Gordon will play on the left and he'll be fighting it out with Maxi for that left wing position. Still leaves us a little bit short on the right, but he can actually play on the right as well. So, you know, I totally understand why we've gone for him. And I think he's going to add a lot of depth to the squad. And is he an upgrade on Fraser and Murphy? Absolutely. So there is positives to take. But yeah, I think when Anthony Gordon makes his debut for Newcastle, it will be as a left winger.
Daz, are you in the same mindset as Chris? Do you think he'll come on as a left, or do you think he might be used or deployed elsewhere?
Well, the great thing is, like, we don't have to decide, and because we're asking the question now, it's going to keep other teams guessing as well. But I think he would be. When I saw him playing first, he was on the left wing, and I thought, yeah, I liked the way he's playing. So I think that's where he would come on. Like today, you have Willock and Joe Linton, and they're kind of swapping over each other as well. And sometimes Willock is great, other times he overdoes it, and there's no sometimes in product, or he doesn't really rarely enough he gets the cross in. Rarely, not always. But yeah, I think in the left wing, I think it's where we'd see him first.
Yeah, are you the same, Richie? I mean, I've got a feeling he's possibly going to be played on the right. I've just got a feeling he might be used as a Miggy replacement, and the reason being is just because from this perspective is that Dom just said before he came off is that Miggy's had a little bit of a dip recently, and with Alan St-Maximin kicking in form, it could well be that it switched the other way around. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Are you thinking something completely different from us?
I'm inclined to agree with you, Pete, actually, because if you look at the options, first and foremost, right, it's good that we brought in, as Eddie said in the press conference the other day, when we brought a replacement for Chris Wood, it was going to be someone who was versatile, that could play in numerous different positions across the front line, which is what Gordon can do. Now, what you've got to look at is you'll probably see Joe Linton move back into midfield now, because obviously we've strengthened up those flanks. Now, I think realistically, for us, I think on an ideal situation, obviously everyone's talking at the minute, Isak and ASM and stuff. I don't think ASM's going to come back into the team. I would be more inclined that he might stick with Wilson, but play Isak from on the left, because obviously we've seen all those clips that were, in his highlight reel, the amount of time he was cutting in from the left-hand side, which drew the comparison to Thierry Henry, which everyone's been talking about in recent weeks and months as well. And that's, to high praise and stuff like that. Obviously, he's got a long way ahead of his career to be like that, but obviously people are seeing little glimpses of what he could be going forward. So for me, I think Gordon potentially could be the right, because you're pretty much stacked on that left hand side. If you go, you've got Isak, ASM, and Gordon who can cover there as well. But after Miggy on the right, you haven't really got. Yes, you've got Murphy, but the quality in Murphy's end games isn't great. Yes, he's got that work rate, and we know he'll keep on running, and we'll know he'll be happy to say bye to players and wave them on and stuff like that. But that final quality, the amount of times when he's been in one-on-one situations with the defender, like Watford last year, for example, prime example of it, could have killed the game off at Watford, and he decides his finishing was abysmal. Do you know what I mean? So adding Gordon as that extra quality that can play on either front, I think he's probably been more earmarked right-hand side, probably for this season, I would say. And then obviously it opens up to all possibilities from next season. You have that flexibility, and obviously we'll see what business is done in the summer as well, whether ASM is still with us or whether the rumours re-emerge in the summer that he could be on his way out. I was at an event last night, and one of the questions that was actually posed to the fans from the panel was, would you accept a bid of 35 million for Almiron in the summer? Because that's that stage of his career now where you probably seen him play his best football going on at the moment, but you probably look at about his age, you look at about 35 million, 40 million. Is that the sort of price you'd probably get? And to be fair, there was quite a few people said they would take that money for him, and there was quite a few that wouldn't. but it's swings around. I don't know. You might want to answer that yourself, Pete Daz, but do you know what I mean? There's a lot of potential movement in the summer as well, because obviously there's other areas that need to be improved first. I think one that Dom didn't cover, I still believe we need someone to compete with Fabian Schär. Lascelles isn't that level. You can still look at Dan Burn as being a fantastic backup to Botman as well as a left centre back, but we haven't got that quality in depth as a right centre back. So I think that's another one that will definitely be a focal point in the summer. But the attacking options, we've seen that when Miggy hasn't been able to get the goals, Wilson hasn't been firing. There hasn't really been much coming off left because Joel Linton hasn't really been playing on the left. He's been doing a job, work rate defensively, the press. He still hasn't got that attacking flair to come in from the flank. He seems to be developing a lot better to, having the game in front of him and being able to get onto the ball coming to the box like his finisher he had the other night. He attacked the box. The run he made, it was a fantastic run from deep. He got on the end of it. We've seen his shooting's not sometimes great at times when he gets in and around it. So I think that midfield's a good position for him to, if you have him, Bruno, and one other, whoever that's going to be. Obviously, I would probably go with Longstaff as the three because of the ground that he covers and the work rate going forward and stuff as well. So there's loads of potential, for everything going forward. But for me, I think Anthony's probably going to be, I'd say more to the right, like you said, Pete.
You've raised a really... Sorry, Daz, do you want to...
because I'm going to answer Richie's question and add another question to it. But first, I'm going to say to Michael Palmer and talking about Gordon's arms are coming out my ears. No, Anthony Gordon's been chasing me all show. He's just mad to give me a hug. Just wants to celebrate come to Newcastle. But answer your question first, Richie, about would I accept 35 million for Miggy in the summer? Yes, I would. And we'll be getting to that in squad game 3. But I also want to bring in this other question from Review Everything is, would you accept 20 million for Wilson in the summer? Again, I would say yes, I would accept 20 million for Wilson. But now, pushing that back onto someone, we'll push that back to you, Pete. Would you take 35 million for Miggy and 20 million for Wilson in the summer?
I'm not going to answer the Miggy question specifically, but what I'm going to say is that if the club were offered 35 million, they'd take it. I think they would. Yeah. Nearly 29 years old, had a good season. Let's be honest. This time last year, no one would have expected. I think they will have FFP in mind. 35 million coming into the club is good business for Miggy Almiron, considering that the deal was 16 rising to 21. They've made a profit on him. They could move him on. I personally, if we're going into Europe next season, I think we need a Miggy Almiron. I think we need him for Europe. I think he's exactly what we're going to need in certain ties, particularly away from home in Europe. He's exactly what we're going to need that could potentially make the difference. So I've kind of answered the question, actually. I personally wouldn't. I'd keep him for at least another year. But I think if we get a bid of that sort of price, I think Newcastle would take it. Now, the interesting one is that question came up about Wilson. And I was thinking in my mind about Wilson, because I think I've mentioned it on the show before, is that I wouldn't be surprised if Wilson goes and is sold in the summer, which might shock a few people because I really like Callum Wilson. But I can't see going into next season, providing everybody stays fit, I cannot see Newcastle United going into another Premier League season with Alexander Isak playing second fiddle to Callum Wilson. And this is my own personal opinion, I don't think Callum Wilson long term, over a course of a season, so I mentioned it in the chat the other day, not just one game for England, I don't think Callum Wilson is a good sub player. I don't think he's a player that can come on and do what Alexander Isak did against Fulham, against Southampton, and change a game like that. He'd nick a goal here and there, but I just don't see it. And I think, personally, more than anything, I don't think he's going to want to sit on the bench. I think he's going to want to play football. So I think there'll be a question there, is if Newcastle get a bid of 20, maybe even 25 million for Wilson, who will be nearly 31, if not 31, in the summer. I think they'll take it, get their money back for what they paid for it, and see you later. I don't know what you think about that. I'm just throwing that out there as an additional question to what Dan's
Chris.
Out there.
Do you, Chris?
Yeah, you know what?
We're just kind of going around the asses to Chris.
Great questions. I mean, I'll admit, when Daz first said it, I was like, yeah, I would take 35 million for Miggy Almiron, because really, when you think this, we're probably seeing the peak Miggy Almiron. Like, it's not going to get better than what we've seen. So in terms of his age, which is, rightly been pointed out, and in terms of getting 35 million for a player who's 28, 29, it's like, it's an offer you've got to consider. But then, like, Pete kind of changed my mind though, and he was talking about Europe, and then I was thinking, actually, I've not taken into account the fact that he's probably the hardest working player on the team, and we need players like that in the team. He's committed to the cause. Very rarely gets injured, to be fair. His injury record's fantastic for Newcastle. So yeah, I'm kind of on the fence over that. Do you know what? You're gonna hate me for this, Rich. I'm going to spin the question, and I'm going to ask you another question, not to avoid the question.
Right,
I want to kind of add in. So, in the summer, would I sell Callum Wilson? Yes, I would. But what I want to ask is, earlier on in this window, so let's say it was the first week in January, if we were offered 20 to 25 million for Wilson, do you think we would have took it? Because that's what I was kind of asking myself. Would we have took it if we'd had
circle?
Yeah, a good 20, 21 days to kind of come up with a replacement? Because let's be honest, we know that the owners will have a list of players for every position. Do you think the owners would have gone, do you know what, we'll take 20, 25 million now for Callum Wilson, and Eddie Howe would have been allowed to bring in a player who would kind of work better in the system that we've got now, in terms of being mobile, in terms of being that all-action striker, knowing that obviously an injury is always around the corner with Callum Wilson?
It's a difficult one again. I'm going to sort of do what Pete did and say,
spin it again.
No. I'm going to do what Pete is. I'm going to do, if it was that length of time in the window to go, and the club offered that, the club possibly would at least consider it, if not accept it, because of how old he is. My concern on that would be, who are you going to get to replace him? Because obviously, yes, you would have turned around and have Chris Wood, but obviously, do you really want him as your backup if anything was to happen to Isak? That's the obviously we're presuming Wood's still going to be here at the time, because the type of player that we really need would be an absolute fortune in this window. It's probably, to get the type of caliber player that Newcastle want going forward, that's definitely going to be a summer transfer, in my opinion, anyway. So for me, I wouldn't personally, but it's something I could definitely see in the summer happening. But just, it was a good point coming back as well. We're going back to the Miggy topic again, that we've got to bear in mind that we need to see how Garang Kowal does at Hearts and where his development is in the summer as well. Because if he kicks on at Hearts, we might be, and obviously the work permit's an issue, we might be able to bring him into the squad going forward. Start him off, like bring off the bench like with Elliot Anderson, possibly playing Carabao Cup games this time next season. Do you know what I mean? And you might be able to move Miggy on if that's the case. If not, then obviously you keep Miggy and you loan out Kowal. So there's a few different options, I think, on that one. Personally, at this moment in time, because of all the things that Pete mentioned, like obviously what the Europe and stuff like that, I wouldn't sell him at the minute. There's other positions that we need to get rid of players. You've got to keep the quality. You want to be, as we discussed today, you want players like Longstaff, Willock, Miggy to be the base level of the squad. Yeah. And then everybody is the improvement. You don't want anybody below that base level with the work rate that they have for that level and what they'll do when they come. You know what you're going to get as soon as they come on the pitch. The work rate's not going to drop. The quality's perhaps not there, but they will work their arse off when they come on. So for me, I wouldn't be selling them.
When I was selling them, I was assuming that we're bringing in someone as a replacement each time, someone younger and they can improve us, because we are going to be going through this cycle of having to offload some of the mascots, as I keep saying, and then there's going to be another year, and each year we have to start offloading some of our players that have been around a long time if their contracts don't run out in the meantime. Lucky enough, we didn't have another question to add on there, Richie. Oh, I was going to ring a Martin, get up on the bed. We have a question for you, but there are plenty of questions in the chat.
I had a quick question to ask you boys. It's a very easy one, Daz. I must admit, I felt a little bit deflated before when I saw the news from Pete Graves and I think, did you say it was Luke Edwards, when they were saying that as far as they're concerned, that's transfer business done? One, do we believe that? And two, would you be disappointed if that was the case and it was just Chris Wood out, Anthony Gordon in, possibly Carl Darlow out on loan as well? Would that be a disappointing window for you boys?
Good question. What do you think, boys? Are we going to go around the asses again?
Go around the asses, but you can't come back.
I think one thing when we got to look at is, have you improved that the quality in the final third? The answer is yes. So on that front, you've got to, you've Darlow goes out, but you've got Loris Karius as a backup.
Yeah.
So for me, and I think you'd probably all agree, lads, that he is definitely an upgrade on Darlow as a third choice.
Yeah.
So for me, if that was the case, then yes, it is a positive window. Would we like it to be better and just bring one or two more in? Of course we would, because it's only going to be people who aren't meant to be in the squad going forward who they're going to be replacing. So the squad would then be stronger again. So for me, even if it's just the moves that happens now, then yes, it is.
Do you think that is it, Rich? Do you think that's it?
No, I think there's still at least one to come in.
I think it's the last of the big names, and I know we haven't even gone on to the M word yet, Pete. Matters. But I think as Dom was saying, we might see some younger players come in, the likes of Harrison Ashby and maybe the young Brazilian lad there. And if that happened, I'd be happy with the window. I think there's something else has to happen. So for me, who's barking?
I have got one more question as well. So Pete, when you're done, and it's a dead quick one again. Sorry, I keep jumping in with you.
No, I thought that was my dog. Then I was thinking,
what dog?
I don't even have a dog.
Yeah, I do. Named after Loic Remy. It's called Remy.
Really?
Yeah. So we got it as Loic Remy was at the club. So I was like, it was either going to be Shola or Remy. As in Loic Remy, so I was like, I went for Loic Remy at the time, thinking he was going to stay at the club.
Yeah, when he went, you were like, bastard.
Get rid of the dog. Get rid of the dog.
Yeah, dog's got to go.
I did actually get a cat. We got a cat once years ago when we first moved in together, and I called it Shola because we were told it was a boy, ended up being a girl. I was like, what is going on? So I had to change the name. Anyway, side point. What was the question?
I have no idea.
No, it was
the window.
It was about the window. Yeah. So I don't think it's over. Now, not the players that you think I'm probably going to talk about. Some of the players that I would love to see through the door. I don't think it's going to be any of them because I think it's too tight to get that deal. You think of how long it's took to get the Anthony Gordon deal agreed and sorted. You think the James Maddison deal is going to be done in 24 hours? We've got no chance. We've been waiting since the summer to try and get that deal done. So that's going to drag on and on. So I just can't see it. If the deal with a high-profile player to be done quickly, it'll be Tielemans, because Tielemans less than 6 months left on his contract. It's a nominal fee. For me, it's all down to him. Does he want to move right now? I think Leicester's accept a bid of anywhere between 18 to 20, 22 million for Tielemans. That's just my own personal opinion. But it's whether he wants to move or not. And it's whether we can get that deal done quickly. That's the only.
I was going to say, Pete, because obviously I've got to go in a minute, but I want to just throw it back to you on the Maddison was. Do you not think that the Maddison offer would still be on the table from Newcastle, but they want a replacement to come in first? Because there was rumours going on today that Leicester have put a bid in from Tete from Lyon. It was obviously a winger who right winger was obviously where Maddison's been playing. So is that the person that they're possibly lining up to come in before they let him go? Because obviously they're not going to let him go without bringing someone in, because at this moment in time, Leicester are lost without Maddison.
To be fair, Leicester have been doing that for a lot for quite a while now with any of their players that they don't necessarily want to lose that have moved out. They've always replaced them beforehand. I think they did that pretty much with Harry Maguire before he left and went to Man United. So they have got track record of doing that. The Tete deal, I think, sent a few shockwaves, not just through Newcastle, but for Leicester as well. A lot of my mates in Leicester were thinking that it might trigger the Maddison deal with Tete potentially coming in. So it wasn't just from a Newcastle perspective that was the thought. But in my mind, I'm thinking that sort of deal is going to need to be done quickly. In my mind, I'm thinking that deal needs to be agreed potentially tomorrow, or we need to be hearing more solid links tonight into tomorrow for that to become a reality. That's just my opinion. I think Tielemans could get done a little bit quicker. However, when I put up about the Malcolm from Zenit St. Petersburg, that for me is a different type of deal, because I think if we're looking at a quality player but on loan till the rest of the season with maybe a view to buy, that can be done like that. Those loan deals can be done really quickly. And I think if Newcastle want first team ready players to come in and do a job right now for Newcastle, if it's a loan deal, I think we're still in the race. But I just think those permanent deals,
I love that.
I just think for me, that's my only hope with regards to first team ready players, because Harrison Ashby, as good as he is not necessarily a first team ready player. If we do go and sign him and bring him in, he's an understudy, but he's not one you would consider a first team ready. Someone like Malcolm could well be, but if we're signing Anthony Gordon, I don't see us signing another inside forward stroke forward to come in and do that.
Not this window in particular, anyway. Not this window.
No, Tielemans and Maddison is different, because Tielemans it can play as a number 8, can play as a number 6. Maddison can play as your inside forward on either side, but he can also play as a number 8. So you bring those players in, they can play in various different positions, and it works. For me, Malcolm was a little bit different, but I still think there are deals to be done. And let's be honest, lads. A lot of the journos are not really on it with regards to any of these deals. And actually, a lot of these deals that, like in terms of knowing things, like before the takeover, they knew everything that was going on. They got the noise. But actually, there's a lot of these deals that they're not always necessarily privy to until it's already been announced, then it gets confirmed, then they get the details on the back of it. And that's not anything to do with the journalists. I think they're doing all they can, but I think Newcastle being so quiet, so guarded with regards to the information that's coming out, like it's taking other clubs to release information. Like the information came from a reporter initially about Gordon that was actually who's linked to Everton, not Newcastle. And then it filtered through to Newcastle, and then the deal broke. So we're hearing it from other means now, not necessarily through Newcastle, which I'm sure the journalists are slightly annoyed about. But actually, it doesn't mean, from our perspective, it means that because they think that it's done, doesn't mean that it's actually done. And that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
We'll never get a journalist on this show ever again.
No, we've got some great journeys. It's not their fault. It's really not their fault.
It was just the way it was worded and proper funny. I saw Daz laughing and then I started laughing. And I thought we've just had a journo on.
No, to be fair,
no, the lads are sound.
Dom's great.
He's
done some great stuff, but I think he would even admit that.
They've all said they're in the dark, haven't they?
Jordan's admitted. He said the same. They all have it. It's a lot harder to get information now.
It's a closed shop, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a closed shop.
More so than ever. It is difficult, but they will have little snippets that we don't know about. And look, when Jordan's come on and when Dom's come on and we've had Graham Bailey and all the rest of them, we've had so many great journalists on and great reporters. They know more than what we do, but they don't get the sort of information now that they were used to.
Yeah,
previous ownership, and that's the key. That's the key, and it's good for us. because it means that sometimes these deals are a shock. I remember the Pope deal coming about and the Isaac deal, and we were all like, "What's going on here?" Like, shocked. But yeah, it's one of those. So I don't hold it that it's done. I believe there's something left in there.
Yeah, that feeds into what you were saying there, Peter. Is that like the likes of Pete Graves? It is weird, kind of Pete Graves saying it's done. I know he's saying that as a fan, but as a come watch Sky Sports News on transfer deadline day, it's not the greatest idea. But yeah, he's trying to be from what he is hearing. It sounds like it's done. But as I agree with you, Pete, there's so much happening. Sorry, Richie. Yeah, you're off.
Sorry, go pick the pen. That's all.
Talk to there, Richie.
See you later, mate.
See you later, mate.
See you later, lad.
Richie will be back on tomorrow when we sign someone else. Yeah, well, let's see how it plays out, I guess.
Yeah, we'll hold some hope there. That's for sure. We still believe that there's a deal to be done. That's the reality of it. Like we could be surprised any second now with anything. That's the beauty of it, and that's the excitement of it all. So look, I think first of all, Ray, thank you for your super sticker.
Cheers,
Thank
Ray.
you for the donations tonight. Amazing, always really, really appreciated. And Ray, it's not the first time you put a super sticker in and help and support the channel. So thank you very, very much for that. New member, Frederick, thank you for becoming a member. Joining the Lady family, absolutely spot on that they were earlier on tonight. Ray's put a question in actually on the back of his super sticker. Trippier extending contract. Do you think the club should be grooming him as a future manager under Eddie's wing? I'll flip that and say, could he potentially be one of three kind of assistant managers alongside Mad Dog, Tyndall, and Graham Jones potentially in the future? What do you think, boys?
For me, yeah, I think it even seemed that way when he came in first, because it was like that. Eddie Howe was over in Atletico Madrid learning from Diego Simeone all the shithousery that he could ever need, and he's made that bond with Trippier, and he's brought it now to us, and it just seems like the natural progression that he would kind of go into some kind of coaching role. So I could definitely see something like that happen. Right.
Definitely. Same for you, Chris.
Yeah, I think. To use Daz's expression, I think there's potential for him to be a future mascot. I think he'll be someone who will be kept in and amongst the squad, even when he's not playing first team football. Definitely a coach. Definitely potential for that. I wouldn't say manager, maybe it's too soon, but I can see why the question's been asked. It's just reminded me, I said I had another question for you boys. Is there anything for you in the timing of tonight's Kieran Trippier contract renewal? Just feels like a bit of an odd time for me. Do you boys think anything of that? I just find it odd. We've just agreed a fee with Anthony Gordon, and then 7 o'clock tonight, they're like, oh, by the way, Kieran Trippier signs a new deal. Think that anything in that? Odd time to announce it, don't you think?
Go on, Daz. What do you think?
Just a guess. I just think that meeting that took place in Saudi Arabia, I think a lot of things kind of be signed off on a lot of things there. And like Trippier new deal. Look, Bruno with the eyes tweet today. Was it connected to the signing, or was it connected? I think it's connected to Bruno, especially with his agent getting involved as well. So it looks like Bruno will be getting a new deal, so he definitely deserves it. And so I think I think it's a group collective sign off on a whole load of things there, and there could be. That's why as well I'm linking it to there could be more deals going on in the background now as well that we're not aware of yet, and no one else is aware of yet. So does that answer your question, Chris? I can't remember the question.
No, it's just I must admit, when the news broke, and it was dead funny that breaking news, and Mike was just like, no breaking news tonight, mate.
No, I wasn't trying to stop it. I was just kind of trying to alert you to the. There was some news. That was all. I wasn't trying to stop Mike at all. I was just waiting. Like I was always going to wait until he finished speaking.
No, of course.
I think they've done the Trippier news now, is because I think potentially between now and Tuesday, they might well announce Bruno's, and I think they're going to want to big up Bruno's more so. They don't want. I think that potentially they don't want to let Trippier's get lost in the shuffle. Because if they're announcing Trippier's and Bruno's, they're going to want to announce Trippier's first. Because although we absolutely love Trippier and he's our captain, the reaction to Bruno's new deal is going to be a hell of a lot heightened off the back because he's the main man in terms of wanting to keep him at the club long term because of his age. So I've got a feeling that if that's the case and it is Bruno's new deal, I think they'll want to release that one next. I don't think it has any relations to transfers. I think they've just wanted to do it in motion in terms of who they announce. So it'd be like, it'd be Trippier, Bruno, Gordon, and then potentially someone deadline day. Fingers crossed. Diaby. Vlahovic. Why not?
Yeah, bring him in. Yeah, why not?
Madison Tillerman's double deal. Why not?
I do believe though, like you were saying, Pete, I do believe it's not the end of the window, and I do think there's still potential for that move to happen. We were talking to Keith Patterson today, weren't we? Saying, it just feels like something's bubbling away. I don't know what it is, and I'm not saying that Pete Graves or the journalists or anything like that are wrong. It's just, I don't know. Under this ownership, we just know anything's possible, don't we? Anything's possible.
And as well, I'm still thinking back to Pete Graves, the little video on as well. He might be also believe that now, but he might be also trying to dampen expectations as well, so that people don't take what you're getting now and be happy because and we might get. I'm like us all. I'm sure we're all just waiting for that surprise. We're normally on transfer deadline day, just waiting for the surprise. We've got like about 4 days left now, 4 or 5 days of waiting for that surprise. So, interesting.
Nobby Clark, I know you'd start this, but it was kind of in relation to what we were just talking about then, dead quickly. If Trippier and Bruno are extending contracts, does that mean they're getting a pay rise and therefore the wage cap and structure's heightened? It's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Are they making moves in order to lower expectations for the bigger signing?
Look, you never sign a new deal without getting some form of benefit with your pay. Even if you drop down in wage, like for example, there are some players that extend their contracts but drop their wage, but their wage is spread over a longer term, so they might get 3 years at a lesser basic wage. Or they might get 2 years on a more extensive wage. So in some way, they're benefiting. There's no doubt about it. And Bruno and Trippier will both be benefiting from that 100%. Who's to say that they're trying to keep within the structure and they've given Trippier, who's 32 now, let's not forget, a longer-term deal, but maybe on a lesser wage. Down to a lesser wage, but it's spread over up until 2025. To help the club in terms of wages in order to finance someone like Gordon or maybe a new player coming in that's potential to happen. Who's to say that's the case? Or even to supplement the additional wages of Bruno. Who's to say that that's not the case? And Trippier is not the kind. I don't see Trippier as the kind of guy that would moan about being the highest paid player. I don't see it. I really don't. I think he's just happy to be there. I think he's, of course he wants to be paid well, but I don't think he's one of them that would be demanding to be the highest paid player at the club.
I think it feels like a reward, like you say, Pete, probably to time down, to show the commitment that he showed us, but also just to say, you know what, you've done well there. You deserve that contract.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sorry, Martin is in our WhatsApp chat there. I just told him to go to bed. He's drunk. He said he was going to bed at 6:30. He's just way past his bedtime.
I'm just laughing. I just see that message just pop up. It was just like, Martin, get to bed. Let me see what was said before. Let me see the messages. I just looked at my phone. All I saw was Bart to go to bed. I don't know what it's about.
Right, we should probably start wrapping up, lads. And I have a question for you to think about as I run through the sponsors. Is, do you think we will be back on again this weekend? I know we'll be back on probably Monday. We're definitely on Tuesday. Probably back on Monday. But do you think we'll be back on again this weekend? As I run through the sponsors, think about that. Right, shout out to theradiatorshed.com. and Russ and the crew there at the Radiator Shed. And yeah, if you haven't seen, I put myself in jail this time. And Anthony Gordon. Yeah, if you haven't seen the new colors, check that out. And if you are in need of heating and radiator needs, you know where to go and check everything out there from Russ and on the website. Also, if you need to get them installed, no better man than Russ again for when the install works. He will sort out everything there for you. And also a shout out to our new sponsor and H2O Bathroom Design Co. and Martin and the crew there at the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and Botch bathroom wear. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate in Gateshead. And if you're wondering what they look like, here they are. Some amazing bathrooms there. Everything you need. They'll sort you out. And we must maybe after the transfer window we'll do a deep dive on the website and show you more and give you. We still have to get Russ on. We might get Martin on as well, we have to get Russ on at some point as well. But that's really it for the sponsors. Back to the question: do you think we'll be back this weekend, lads?
We'll be back. Of course we will, mate.
We'll be back. So we'll close it down. So,
Daz, you know what time it is though? Before we do,
no.
Hey. Can't leave without this, surely.
Go on, Chris.
Okay, so just a big thank you to everyone for watching. Don't forget, before the show ends, hit that like on your way out. It does help with the algorithms. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. And of course, if you'd like to become a member, which someone else did tonight, please do so. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks again. Yeah, thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks to both the Unholy Trinity and Mike from the Everton fan channel for joining us, and for Dom for giving up his Friday evening to come chat with us as well. And a busy evening for him with things happening as well at Newcastle and a couple of days ahead. That's it. Have a good weekend. We'll probably see you tomorrow night. You never know. What'll happen at this club now. How'd you like that? Flash. Ah.
Drink it.